Often the tamas guna of ignorance obstructs us in achieving our goals due to the addictions, bad habits, laziness and worrying. Often relationships fail because of it, not to mention the health. Therefore my idea was to record a short video about gunas because this division is present in many Indian branches of knowledge like astrology, Ayurveda, Vastu, theology, and yoga. So when I mention it, I will have a video to which I can always refer. Therefore, in this video, we'll talk about these three gunas of nature: sattva, which is the mode of goodness, rajas, mode of passion, and tamas, mode of ignorance. I will talk about my favorite features related to these gunas and also the impact on our lives and usage with the astrology. Guna represents the forces of nature called prakriti, and important thing is that they are always competing with each other. They are always fighting each other. There are various texts which describe them in detail. If you are further interested in it, I would recommend the Bhagavad Gita, the last chapters, also the Srimad Bhagavatam, especially the canto 7th and 11th, Manusmriti and Devi Bhagavatam. There are probably other scriptures that describe it, but these are which I've encountered. They are very interesting because the gunas are influencing many things like places, objects, the food, way of acting, way of working, approach to happiness, approach to family, and even approach to eating. Also the times in the year, the times in the day, they are all divided into the gunas, and as I said, they are always competing for power. There will be always one which will try to be the dominant. There are also different mixes of the guna when it comes to our body. In one lecture of Guru, there was a nice example of the cow who has a taste in the mode of goodness because the cow likes the food in that mode, but the consciousness of that animal is in the state of ignorance because as all animals, they don't have the higher awareness. So we can see that the taste can be goodness, but general consciousness will be in the tamas, or the mode of ignorance. As we can guess, such mixes or divisions can complicate belonging to one's varna or social class, like a caste. This is because we must figure out which dominant feature of person will be determining that belonging to a special category. So therefore there are many philosophical approaches to this. For example, there is a book by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj about the Brahmana and Vaishnava, where various shlokas from Vedic texts are discussed, and there are many arguments in terms of this problematic. Also, in our school, we have this Panchanga, and there is especially the Sri Achyutananda, from whom this school originates, and he also discussed this specific philosophical problematic of belonging to a special class category based on those specific features. The guna of goodness requires a bit of cleverness to float on it because it is depending on the constant rejection of the temptation of the mode of passion, which tempts us with these empty promises. Therefore, it's said that the jnana and sukha, the main features of sattva, the mode of goodness, which is the knowledge and inner happiness, very much related to the fourth house, where in Cancer we have Jupiter exalted. These features are coming from the renunciation of the sensual enjoyment. So we can see here that these main features of a sattva guna are coming from some form of renunciation of this more shallow or external enjoyment. Therefore, as the saying goes, you cannot have the cake and also eat it at the same time. Therefore, because of the gunas are competing with each other, which means that more goodness means less mode of passion, and being involved in more rajas mode of passion also equates to reducing the sattva guna. This philosophical assumption goes against the modern new age or woke assumptions that spirituality and consumerism or this shallow materialism can go hand in hand. In the Bhagavad Gita, it's said that sattva guna begins bitter and end up sweet. Rajoguna, the mode of passion, it begins very sweet, so it has these beautiful promises, but ends up bitter. And the tamoguna, the mode of ignorance, it starts bitter and end up bitter because there is no more resources to hold on because they were all, we could say, exploited by the person. We have to also remember that these forces of nature, the gunas, are never in pure form. They are always mixed with the other one. So the sattva guna is very reflective, it is inner, and it brings us the long-term satisfaction. Because of the peace and stability and calmness which it creates, it is the foundation for the knowledge, higher awareness and wisdom. So it's not spirituality, but it's a very nice airport to transcending the three gunas of Prakriti, of material nature. The sattva guna is the closest to such crossing the material world. Therefore, all the Vedic texts are suggesting that it is most effective to be on that level if one wants to finally transcend this material awareness. And planets in guna are Sun, Jupiter and the Moon. Sun is showing that order, that discipline which is needed, the renunciation. Burning, the Jupiter is showing the knowledge and happiness, and the Moon will show that love for all people without discrimination, and also this very empathic and caring, nurturing consciousness. The guna of passion now, the Rajoguna, the second one, is coming from strong desire, which is triggering very hard work. So we have those dreams of position, fame, money, success and recognition, and these emotions are source of big happiness for many people in that Rajoguna consciousness. So that strong desires, also being together with people who are also sharing that same desire, this is bringing one into the mode of passion, which is ruling this world, right? So Mercury and Venus, these two forces are the biggest motivations and triggers for any action in this world, which is relationship and work. Work produces the resources which are there burned as an enjoyment. So that stage of producing these resources of the work, we could say it's a mix of rajas and sattva, because it is bitter in the beginning, and the time, that phase or stage when we are enjoying these resources, this could be in the passion and ignorance, because if we enjoy too much without going back to that cycle of work, then we can fall to the tamas or mode of ignorance. So if the ignorance consumes all the resources, then this symptoms of tamas, which is Mars and Saturn, the anger and the sadness will overpower the consciousness and limits its knowledge. So the anger and sadness can, and fear, very much fear, we will talk about this soon, can limit also the consciousness. So this is how the mode of ignorance is making person blind to many aspects of life. Guna of passion, the Rajoguna, is full of excitement, like fireworks. It is blinding the person. So people with a weak sun in the charts can fall easily, can be trapped because of the senses. So we can say that this Venus can put a grahana or eclipse the sun. It's like the moths which are flying to the fire. We are buying something depending on the nature and the size and how close is this to our dreams. This can satisfy us for a day, for a week, or for the month, but ultimately this will somehow melt down the happiness and we have to strive for something else. So the capitalism or consumerism is very much aligned with this type of viewing or seeing the world in the mode of Rajoguna, which is always creating, which is always expanding. So the material growth is also the aspect of the mode of passion. Rajoguna is also pushing our consciousness from the internal, watching what's going on, this metacognition, into the external cognition. We are starting to see the world, analyze the world, and it's making the consciousness external focused. In astrology, Mercury and Venus are very important. They are the main karaka of the houses 7 and 10. So the Kendra houses, they are very personal and they are the foundations. 7 is about the relationship and 10 is about the work. So also Sun, Mercury and Venus are also in the transits very close to each other. This shows that these temptations are always in this material world very close to this consciousness and can put the sun down. Now the tamas, the guna of ignorance, it leads to suffering because it blinds our consciousness. As if we are standing on the road and we close our eyes and hope that when we close our eyes, the problems will disappear. So this is how the intoxicants work. But the fact is that the reality continues regardless of our exposure to it. So closing our eyes will not change anything in the objective world. The problems will stay the same. The suffering and disappointments of tamas guna are coming from ignoring the main rules of how this world works. Not only about society or the special culture or social arrangements, but general, the very deep foundation of the reality. Often also it comes because the body is very much addicted to the chemicals which are creating this dopamine, very short but also very high. It's also as such a vicious circle, because if we fall into the mode of ignorance, we are in the despair, the victimizing ourselves, we have the self-critic, then we are also in that mode of how we feel, how we think, so we have somehow to break it. And often when we have too many stressors, we feel overwhelmed and we have this emotional breakdown. We can become a very short-tempered or hateful, and most of the time on the foundation of anger, the fear is there. So when we are seeing that we are going into that vicious circle, the best thing to do would be to immediately, somehow, if possible, if we have developed that force or strength, to go from the tamas into the passion. So in that time, when we are in the tamas, it's a little bit like going against our nature. It's going against our feeling, going against our thoughts, because we have to remember that in that time, or our feelings and thoughts are in that mode of ignorance. So we have somehow go against them. It demands an effort, because also the emotions and feelings and thinking of tamas guna is taking our energy away, because energy is again the highest in the mode of the rajaguna. So somehow we have to develop or go into that thinking modus of rajas to escape from the tamas guna. Because these moments of suffering and enjoyment in the tamaguna, they are very narrow and very high. We can compare them to contrast in photography. And because of these moments of suffering and happiness are very short and they change very quickly, they are taking away our calmness and the stability, mental stability, which allows for memory, which allows for cognition and awareness and that synthesis of many things at the same time, which is making up the wisdom. In such a way, the tamoguna, the mode of ignorance, is stealing our knowledge, stealing our awareness and the wisdom, and is making us blind to big parts of reality, which is ending up with the suffering. Also in the Gita, there is an interesting description of tamoguna, which says that person who is treating the work all in all. So that can be the minus point of the hyperfocus, which is many times the traits also of the ADHD or autism or other neuroatypical people who are having this hyper focus. They can be very much focused for some point of time on one thing, and they can ignore the time and other parts of reality. So I remember in one podcast there was this interview with a researcher, and it was said that often the research is so much energy and time consuming that the person is forgetting to conclude about the effect or outcome of this research. So this is also depicting the Rahu in the Lagna, which has a 0 Digbala. So there is a lot of research, but there is no conclusion. And the Jupiter, which is in the first house, is having the full Digbala or full directional strength. So for the Rahu, because the Rahu is normally in the ignorance mode, in the mode of tamas, to make a nice outcome, nice conclusion of all of this research of Rahu, we would need some nice Sun or Jupiter. Because the Jupiter especially, it is concluding, synthesizing, summarizing all of these outcome coming out from the research. And fear also have such a feature that it narrows our awareness and consciousness to things which are only important to survive in that fight and flight modus. So all our systems of the body, organs, all are reduced for that very quick reflex responses to survive. Therefore, fear is also a very debilitating emotion. And there is a very nice quote by Naomi Klein in her book Doppelganger. I will just quote this. Hence, calm is a form of resistance. I think about those words often. Calm is not a replacement for righteous rage or fury at injustice, both of which are powerful drivers for necessary change, but calm is the precondition for focus, for the capacity to prioritize. If shock induced a loss of identity, then calm is the condition under which we return to ourselves. Berger had me to see that the search for calm is why I write, to tame the chaos in my surrounding, in my own mind, and I hope in the minds of readers as well. We can see that this calmness is a very important feature, which is, we could say, the gateway to sattva guna. And also, the other way, the sattva guna is a foundation for the calmness, and only when the calmness is there, the wisdom can be there long-term, building, which then is slowly transformed into the wisdom. So in the summary, we can ask how to overcome the tamas. Usually the neighbor guna would be the rajas. So even the trivial things like making some sorting in our place of living or doing some cleaning of the room, things like that, will bring that agency back. And because of that control that I can change something, this is very helpful in times of anxiety or depression. In one interview, one person said that he likes to cleaning the room because he can see the direct effect, the impact between the work and the outcome. Sometimes we are dedicating a lot of work, but the outcome is really not proportionate to the effort given. Other thing of Rajaguna would be the sports. The sports or a big exercise can also be a big factor to overcome the tamas. Now, one well-known mechanism would be that it is creating those chemicals in the brain, which are very similar to chemicals which are produced by the medications for psychological challenges. So this exercise can take us out from the tamoguna. Also, what's interesting, the desires. The desire is the main feature of Rajaguna. So also being with people who are having the high ambitions, high desires, high obsessions can also ignite that desire, which will then create this loop of desire, hard work, desire, hard work. And this is also very much related to people with the Rajaguna, people who are very much controlled by Mercury and Venus. Now, how to overcome the Rajaguna? This is more difficult because the whole society is Moon, Mercury and Venus. We are living in society. There is all that consumerism and all that cultural generational inheritance of values, and therefore we need to have some knowledge. So by knowledge and also by Sangha, by association of people who are also in the mode of goodness, like philosophers, artists or spiritual people, we can transcend this Rajaguna, because being in the mode of goodness is quite revolutionary to the society, because all the time we need to say no to this short-time temptations, short-time enjoyments. So it demands a lot of discipline. Therefore, the strong sun would be a very good thing to have if one is striving to be on that mode of the goodness. For some people it's quite natural, maybe they got this power already from the past life, so charts like with a strong moon, sun or Jupiter, these people will have the natural tendency, natural likings and natural preference to be in the mode of goodness. So for them it may not be even the fight or strive, they are just in that place of society and place of consciousness, and this is the best place for them to thrive and to live. Usually we call this state of consciousness the brahmanas. And now how to overcome the sattva and go to the Shuddha sattva, transcend the material world. We can only do that by yoga, so by joining some kind of traditional school, traditional ashram, traditional lineage, spiritual lineage, which will conduct us with the instructions coming from either Jnana Yoga, Karma Yoga, Raja Yoga or Bhakti Yoga, which is said to be the Bhakti Yoga, the last. It's said to be the easiest and most effective in the current period of time called Kali Yuga. So speaking here of yoga, it's of course not what the how the Western culture commodified yoga and also astrology, reducing astrology to these transits videos or this planet in house videos who are acting like a 2 minutes dopamine suppliers. Similarly, the yoga is very much reduced from the Ashtanga, from 8 angas of yogas, 8 branches of yogas. Only the asana is taken because it's most external, it's most shallow, it's easiest, it's something which can be easily commodified and serve as tools again for the rajas, for the Mercury, which is here called the optimization of the productivity for career life and also for the relationship. Sometimes mental health is also mentioned, but it is a little bit sattva. So the whole yoga practice was taken and commodified and exploited again for the Rajoguna, or mainly of the work and relationship. So what is interesting, the knowledge of gunas is so universal, it's going through the centuries and nothing new under the sun in 5th, in 15th or in the current 21st century. It's always there and we can really benefit from the knowledge of the 3 gunas. So I could say that ethically I'm progressive, but epistemologically, which is the theory of knowledge, I'm very much conservative because we are using here a lot of these old texts. The old wisdom is still maintained. It's still very actual. The other thing we can appreciate is that we were discussing in this video mainly the psychological part of the gunas, but the gunas, just like karma, is not reduced to the subject. It is influencing also our socio-economical resources, which we are calling the nurture, right? There is this famous battle between the nurture and the nature. And we can also appreciate the connection between the two. People who are brought in the middle class or higher class may have more examples and more knowledge how to be flowed on that Rajo and Sattva Guna, because these resources created that calmness, and this is more apt to be in that Sattva or Rajoguna. The lower classes are struggling more with the Tamoguna or Rajoguna. But of course, this is generalization. There are always exception to this, and we also can see how from the higher classes, from the Sattva Guna, the person can misuse the generational wealth, and from sattva can, through the hazards, through the addiction, drugs, can go very steep down and can misuse all the resources and can end up in the tamas. So there are many directions, many journeys between these gunas. Also, someone may say, echoing the essential criticism of the gunas, that this is very much simplification. But just like in Ayurveda, the complicated diseases are said to be created from the Vata, Pitta and Kapha. Similarly, we can say that the more complex psychological mechanisms are always be created also by these gunas. So by knowing the feature of the gunas, we can understand how the more complex mechanism, how they are also, we could say, are taking part in the guna or are using the essential features of the gunas. Just like there are many colors which are in the camera created by the red, green and blue connection. We can have the 8, 10 bits, 12 bits. So there are millions of colors which are created by the mixture of this simple 3 colors. Similarly, the 3 gunas are giving rise or birth to so many manifestations because of this various mixes of them. What does the liberation mean in this context? It means that we are crossing the 3 guna and we are going to something which is called the Shuddha Sattva, the pure godness. So by living in the mode of goodness, by living in the Sattva Guna, we can, according to Vedic text, to the traditional Vedic text, we can go highest to the some region which is called Satya Loka. This is the highest place in this material world. Of course, it's not built from the vulgar matter, it's not visible to our so-called vulgar eye, but it's still material world. And to cross that Satya Loka, which can be quite hard, because many texts are also saying that the earth is the best place for spiritual development, because there is nice balance between the happiness and the pain, which is creating this reflection and this philosophy how to ultimately liberate this material world. And the texts say that in that Deva places, the Satya Loka, there is too much happiness, that the real desire to transcend material world, that thought is not really coming, or if it's coming, it's not so motivating or so strong for the spiritual development. If one wants to transcend the 3 gunas, then the only way is to be engaged in some form of yoga. This can be knowledge, jnana yoga, or this can be karma yoga, which is the renunciation of work or efforts of work or the fruits of work. Raja yoga, which is the siddhi through Ashtanga yoga, like making some form of mechanical exercises which have in mind the increase of consciousness, or the bhakti yoga, which is developing the taste for higher things, which will automatically reduce the desire for lower things. So astrologically, we know that the self is complex. We have intelligence, mind and spirit. So we can have a moon and navamsha. We have the lagna, which is intelligence, and we have also the spirit, which is atmakaraka. So knowing the planets in which category they are, we can also see which part of our self will be related to which guna. We also need to understand the signs are also in the 3 gunas. We have a signs in Tamaguna, which is a fixed sign. Planets in dual signs will be sattva, and movable signs are in the Rajaguna. Similarly, houses, we have a division. Kendra houses, 1st, 4th, 7th, and 10th, are in the Rajaguna. Apoklima are in sattva, and Panafara are in the tamas. This Panafara and Apoklima, they are exchanging their guna when counted from Arudha Lagna. So Apoklima, 3rd, 6th, 9th and 12th, from Arudha Lagna, they are in the tamas. But from the normal ascendant, they are in the sattva. There are much more divisions in Vedic texts, like we have this nice Annamoy, Pranamoy, Gyanamoy division of consciousness, which I think is best described by Srila Bhaktivedanta Purna Swami. We have also the divisions to Shreya and Priya in Upanishads, but I think the guna division is very popular and very, very helpful, not only from the psychological, but from all perspective, which includes the socio-economic consideration. Okay guys, so that's gonna be it for today. I hope you find this video interesting and informative. For one-on-one consultation, please consider booking it, hitting me up with this email. Please join our Discord community, subscribe for more, and if you like to see more videos on Jyotish, then please consider watching this one.